Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting AdvisorShares AlphaNooner. Today, we're very excited to be welcoming back Dan Ahrens. We're going to spend some time talking through themes, also considering some recent volatility that we've seen, of course, with this Iran conflict that has opened up over the weekend. And one second, I'm hearing an echo. Are you hearing an echo as well, by chance?
I am not. I'm just hearing myself.
I'm hearing the echo there. There we go. I figured it out. Anyhow, sorry about that. So if you're out there and joining, of course, if you have questions, I've seen some come in already, which is great to hear. Keep them coming. It's our favorite part of this. It's a great way to connect directly with Dan and get some insight into what he's seeing generally, but also, of course, across these specific themes that we're going to spend some time on. So with all that said, Dan, love the shirt. We're going to talk cannabis. Don't worry out there.
Going old school here.
There you go. A little
maybe
throwback.
Get some good juju wishes, karma, whatever the hell you choose to believe in. We need it. So.
Yeah, we got to get it going. Although I will say, not to tease it too much, I do think we are going to be issuing a new shirt design coming up for 420. So for anyone who's out there and interested in the merch side of things, stay tuned. But yes, that's a good classic.
Step one, unless we get our rescheduling done, no one gives any crap about a new t-shirt. But with the positive thoughts that, of course, we're going to have good stuff by 420, a new shirt would be awesome.
That sounds good. That is important. Priorities are important. All right. Well, then I know we're going to get to cannabis a little bit here, but I did just want to start with kind of where we are in the markets. Of course, as I was mentioning, the big news has been all this volatility, uncertainty that's opened up following this Iran conflict over the weekend. Just wanted to kind of start at a high level in terms of what this volatility means generally from an investing perspective. And then, specifically, we'll move into the themes and kind of touch on areas that it might impact more, but would love to get sort of your high level views now that volatility is kind of back in the picture.
It's volatile out there.
Yes, it is. That's all you have to say. Fair enough.
Take care of your mentals and your, it's interesting. Yesterday, the pre-market started off really ugly and then came out by the end of the day almost flat yesterday. Did you notice that, Mackenzie?
What was that?
It was early morning panic because you turn on the news and they said gas prices are going to skyrocket. I absolutely heard the mainstream media saying that. Mm-hmm. No, going up 20 cents isn't skyrocketing. Gas prices went up a little bit. Gas prices are pretty cheap. Who the hell cares? And yes, things were really ugly. A lot of panic. People thought, hey, there's some good prices out there. I'm a long-term investor. Maybe I should buy some of this. So things recovered. Now, no promises for today, but last I looked,
we're right across.
It was ugliest at the open and in the first hour and a half or so. Now it's creeping back a little bit. Still a pretty damn ugly day, of course. And pretty much across the board, I am not liking what's happening in semiconductors. I'm not liking what's happening in things like our heating, ventilation, and air conditioning related fund. No ticker. Are you proud of me?
Yes, very much.
I have no promises for the full 30 or 45 minutes or so, but I will try. Yep. So, things energy related are getting kind of beat up. Infrastructure and industrials are getting pretty beat up. But NASDAQ, Dow Jones, S&P are down pretty similarly today. I see one area that's not down today, and that's cannabis, but nothing to get too excited about because yesterday was an ugly day. So no victory laps here.
Fair enough.
So no, I try not to get too caught up in it. If anything, there might be some opportunities for people that were wanting to buy these kind of prices. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of volatility, and use it as a wake-up call, people, that, and it's not just diversification. Diversification is an overly used term that sometimes people use to a fault, but it is a good wake-up call to review your portfolios and think, maybe I should have a little bit more in this, a little less in that. Maybe this is a good opportunity to move stuff from here to there. People should use that.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Well, I did want to turn to one in specific in terms of the themes in general, just because I think it is tends to be known as a little bit more recession resistant or resilient. And I think that is also potentially true in, cases like what we're seeing today. So I'd love to turn a little bit more to kind of the vices side of things and kind of dig into that, because that's also kind of an area that has done well this year so far. I was just checking when we were going live. We're still in a trading day, so of course that can change, but I think still looking pretty positive even for the day. What can you kind of tell us about, that theme in this kind of environment?
Yeah. We have a Vice related ETF, and looking year to date, it's up a whopping 2%, while the S&P 500 is negative 1%. And its little chart line I'm looking at is a whole lot steadier than psychedelics, and cannabis, and even heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, things like that can be a steadier ride. And that is a fund. When some people hear the term active management, what does that mean? Well, it means it's just not an index, but that's a fund that I can purposely be a little bit more active in. People that listen to me much have said that I've been avoiding a lot of the traditional vices quite a bit. We had been away from alcohol because it's been widely known that people are drinking a lot less than old numbers, especially since the COVID bump. Everybody was drinking. And it's been a poor place to invest. But at some point, these areas that get poor performance over a period of time bottom out, perhaps. Anheuser-Busch is not going away. They're not going out of business. We don't invest in it still. But if people that follow our trades, we fairly recently added Carlsberg. If people aren't familiar, we're talking about mostly European beer. They still drink a lot of beer in Europe. Sure. We recently re-added Heineken even. So these are a couple ADRs, technically OTC traded ADRs in the US. That means it gets a 5-letter symbol ending in Y. And for both of those stocks I just mentioned. And we also added Ambev recently. And for those that don't know, we're talking about Ambev that technically owns Anheuser-Busch now. But ABEV. And for whatever reason, I don't know, probably war in the Middle East, European stocks are down a little bit today. So there's a good one in the top 5. It's actually performing really nicely since we just added it a couple weeks ago. Hershey. We added Hershey's chocolate. That's not to be confused with Nestle, which is European. Hershey is, of course, in Hershey, Pennsylvania, for those that don't know. That is looking a little recession and stock market and outside influence resistant. So looking at our attribution reports recently, Hershey's was the top gainer over the past week in the fund. Nice. So I'm glad I added it when I did. And by the way, quick little sales pitch to everybody listening. Our holdings for all of our funds are updated on our website every business day. And when you hear about us talking or you notice a new stock being added to any of our portfolios, you might want to take note, because we have a pretty damn good track record for why did I add this? Because there's a whole bunch of tools that tell me to add it. Yes. That's all. And then I make a human decision as well. But we have some pretty good tools for looking at earnings revisions, analyst upgrades, various things that tell us to add a stock. And it's been fairly successful.
Yes, I think that's true. I think that's true, of course, of any of the ETF, like you're saying, and you can obviously go directly to the source if you want to see that. I think it is easier sometimes when you have someone like Jane, who on the cannabis side is kind of breaking down the changes and keeping people up to date. But it's always good to do your own due diligence. And again, on these other funds that aren't maybe covered, important to do that. But also, this is a great time, I think, to highlight the changes that are made, the thinking behind it. Like you're saying, it sounds like beverages in general, alcohol beverages have been punished a little bit, but maybe kind of are on the rebound. And it's a time that you're looking and have added back.
And I know most of our listeners are listening for cannabis talk. No, there's nothing new to add to the cannabis funds. There's, and I very purposely don't actively manage the big one, the US based one, nearly as much.
Yes.
Because I like the mix of it right now. Sometimes I do nips and tucks and add a little bit more here and subtract a little bit there, but it's very, very low turnover.
Yes.
Some of these vice related and heating and ventilation and air conditioning and even psychedelics related, I can be a little bit more tactical because of the liquidity, because of the types of stocks, because of they're all listed on the exchange, NASDAQ or NYSE. So
I think I was going to say, I think you said not actively managed, still actively managed, but you're right. Less tactically, less sort of aggressive in terms of the trades and the positions and all that.
All our funds are technically actively managed in the terminology that they are simply not index following, is what that means.
All right. While we're still kind of on the vices and talking about beverages, I would love to bring up Stevie's question, which is a great one, talking about wine, because I think previously in the past, we've seen in the vices side of things, there's been a blend. There's been wine, there's been beer, there's been spirits.
I talk about that. Like even when I wrote that Vice book, 20 something years ago, there used to always be a, thank you, Noah. Yeah. Me and Noah both do our part. We drink that wine. There used to be this rotation between wine, high-end spirits, back to big beer. And we always, could say that big beer was recession-proof or recession-resistant, whatever. And all that's gone out the window in the last couple of years. Alcohol sales are down across the board, especially the younger generation. They might like their, another interesting thing is first it rotated into seltzers and hard ciders and all that kind of stuff because the big beer companies were having problems. So they started adding more of those. And now everything's fallen off. Younger generation might like their gummies. They might like to smoke and might like the other beverages and maybe consuming all of that stuff less overall. But you got oldies like me still drinking the wine, drinking the whiskey. But no, Stevie, to answer your question, even the I was out in Napa, I don't know, 6 months ago. The industry is hurting. There's wineries closing up shop, and production and sales are down across the board.
Interesting. I wonder if part of that is also just growing is difficult. I know we've seen, I think, heat trends change pretty dramatically. I think we saw the hottest winter on record, I think, in the US, even though.
Now there's some excellent wineries open up in Greenland.
Oh,
I'm kidding. That's not happening. But, there's lots of growing regions around the country besides just Napa and Sonoma, and they grew some excellent stuff in Oregon, which, for those that don't know, is exactly the same parallel. The Willamette Valley in Oregon is right at the same parallel as Burgundy, and that's why they grow the same grapes.
Very cool. Did you watch, what was that movie, that documentary on how California became a real contender in the wine business? It was it's a classic one, and it talks about same thing where the soil, the composition, the conditions are very similar to.
Was it a documentary?
Maybe it was a movie, but it was based on. I'll find it. I'll tweet that out after this. It's worth a watch if you're interested in wine prices. But ultimately, I think it all ties it back to, it is important to be, even if you're looking at the alcohol side of things for vices, to be in the right segment within that is important, and managing around that is something that you can do. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah, so we're slowly adding a little bit of alcohol back in, very carefully, individual stock selection. By the way, there's not much to invest in wine. Yes, you got to keep that wine at the right temperature, but they can also put it in a cave. Noah, a cave keeps things nice and cool. But keep your wine at the right temperature, people. There's not much to invest in wine. Duckhorn was public for a while, but they went private again. And there's some, big conglomerates like, Diageo and Constellation. We're not investing in either of those either, that are conglomerates that own some wine.
Yeah.
But we digress.
No, I think that's
fair. Mackenzie.
That's fair. I think that's interesting overall, though. And I think as we're going through this highly volatile time, interesting to kind of relook at different themes that potentially can help around, managing volatility. That's the name of it. Drops of God.
Thank you, Noah.
Thanks so much. Again, it's a good one. Oh, it might get worse. We'll see.
Here's one stock for those that play at home.
Sure.
Alto, ALTO. That's ingredients. That is a alcohol producer. Alto Ingredients that does not directly make brands of alcohol, but they produce a bunch of alcohol.
Nice.
All right. Sense?
Cool fun fact. That does make sense.
Medical grade and all kinds of stuff, and ingredients to other producers.
Yep, that sounds good.
And it's up 5%. That caught my eye because it's up 5% today.
That's a nice move. All right, that sounds good. I think anything that's moving green is very welcome to see at this point. You did mention cannabis moving green, which is great. I know yesterday was a painful day. Still looks like things are moving up, which is great to see. So maybe let's spend time turning to cannabis a little bit. I know we'll work through some news. I know you've got some key things you want to kind of help remind people on, but did just want to get a sense of, this week, how you're viewing cannabis and kind of the volatility, what that adds to a theme like cannabis.
Yeah. In our global strategy that I will not name its ticker, it holds Charlotte's Web. Charlotte's Web is up 7.7% today on my screen. It's the fourth largest holding in that fund. It's been adding a lot of alpha to that fund. And I'm going to another screen right now in that particular global strategy of AdvisorShares. Past year's up 36%. I'm looking at our other funds and other competitors. The next best competitor is up 18%. This is over 1 year, rolling 1 year. I know that's a unique time period. And it's a lot better than our... Can I mention the competitor tickers, Mackenzie, or should I not?
I think you should not. But you can say...
The hell with them, but we're beating them. Sure. Year to date, of course, things are negative, so we're not patting ourselves on the back for making money, but our global strategy is a lot less negative than everybody else's. Yep. It's down 13%. The next best competitor is not our own fund year to date. The next best competitor is down 17%. 2 years, once again, that fund, our global strategy, it's down 21% over the last 2 years. The next best competitor is down 40%. So our global strategy is just kicking everybody's ass by a wide margin. If you tuned in a couple months ago, you heard me bragging on High Tide and Village Farms as why that's adding a lot of alpha to our fund. Now, Charlotte's Web is up to the fourth largest holding. It's adding a lot more alpha over its Noah's saying benchmark. Cannabis has been very tough to invest in, but that fund, our global strategy, it's the best one out there by a wide margin. Now, our U.S. strategy is infinitely larger, and it's more than 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times the next biggest competitor, because the listeners out there, as well as myself, we're still believing in this U.S. strategy. Or why the hell would we be invested in this stuff at all? I know it's painful. I know it's taking long. We're still tied to it. Yes, we have conversations behind the scenes. We do. And everything we hear is still positive, but it's also gone crickets in a lot of ways. So do I have any great predictions? No. Should you listen to other people online? God, no. Oh, there's some dumb people that are trying to pump their own bullshit. Even if you're a small-time, very old, only state-registered hedge fund manager in Florida, you're not even big enough to be SEC registered. I don't know why the hell people care what your opinions are, because you're trying to pump your own book. Uh-oh, Mackenzie's making faces at me.
Everyone's going to have, yes, I think you should be careful about the sources.
Be very careful what you listen to. That said, yes, we hear things are still coming. It's still positive. Pam Bondi has handed it off to a second in command in the DOJ, who is supposed to get it done. We hear. Can't tell you more than that. Do I have a time frame? No. I also like what's happening in the Supreme Court right now. It looks like they are going to have some approvals for Guns and drugs. No, that's a little joke. But people that have,
I guess, right?
a cannabis on their record, which we all know is a lot safer than a lot of prescription drugs and a lot safer than alcohol and a lot of other things. I liked the argument yesterday that our founding fathers were all on whiskey and beer and everything else and guns. No one would have imagined in their worst nightmare taking away our founding fathers' guns for alcohol convictions. Well, I guess they didn't have alcohol convictions, did they? They were just they were brewing beer and making whiskey and drinking the hell out of it.
Yeah.
So that's another positive. We see these other little baby steps constantly. If you read the tea leaves, it seems like the rescheduling is coming. I've also had deep talks with lots of people like, is it going to include safe harbor for banking and uplisting? I don't know. I always said that the rescheduling makes those much less controversial, and I think Congress could actually do them rather easily if we get the rescheduling. What does the guidance look like for states' rights and adult use? We don't know what it looks like and smells like, but we know we're going to have adult use, but we're going to need some guidance from the DOJ. What else is there? There's all sorts of stuff to unpack and all that, and we're just sitting and waiting for it.
No, I think that's fair. I think there's some amount that you can account for and can try to guess what's going to happen next. I think you can trust that the industry, because they have a line of communication with the administration, are communicating the things that they need. I think in general, and I think we've done a job of communicating also to the exchanges on uplisting, all of that stuff as well, which I know is important. So I think all of that is in place. Like we're saying, we're waiting for that, just the finalization to come through. I am curious just because I feel like there has been so many of these headline grabbing moments that we've seen over the past, even just this year. How much does that take away from getting this done? Or is that almost effectively like a constant at this point where...
You mean headlines outside of cannabis, like
yes,
bombing Iran?
exactly.
Okay, as example.
Mm-hmm.
What we hear is that all that stuff can have no or practically no impact on getting cannabis done. Mm-hmm. And the example is, right in the middle of all kinds of crazy ass stuff happening in December, Trump took a few minutes and had a little press conference and signed the executive order. Don't anybody get triggered by that. The executive order was a very good thing. Mm-hmm. Do the stock prices reflect it? No, they suck. But it's still a very good thing. And it was an order. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a wish. It wasn't a campaign promise. It was an order. And everything we hear says the completion of that by the Attorney General or the DOJ is still coming. But what we hear is that could happen even though the president and the Attorney General and the DOJ, everybody is very busy doing lots of stuff, but they always are. Are they not, Mackenzie?
No, they are there. I just feel like they have a ton. I mean, between the file, there's just, I think, so much getting thrown at them.
Yeah, but when's there not going to be something thrown at them?
That is extremely true. Yeah. No.
When is it not?
I think it's a constant. That's true. So out of curiosity, I see Renato's question. Speaking about the executive order, again, great to see obviously on the medical cannabis support and the rescheduling or reclassification. But we did see that extra benefit of the CBD for Medicare, which is great. I think
which is why Charlotte's Web is continuing to go up. I saw some naysayers online bitching about Charlotte's Web and thinking they're going to sell massive amounts of biomass or something like this. But who the hell cares? If you know that Charlotte's Web stock was down 98% or so over the last 5 years, it is not shocking to see how much it's gone up in the past few months, and it has a lot of room to run. I mean, they are the top company in the CBD space with some THC mixed in. People don't think it's a different plant. It's just all about legal limits and what they can do. And they have interstate commerce. They have branding. They have all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, no, nothing. There's nothing seriously interesting out there about Medicare and Medicaid CBD except what you've already read. It's happening, I think, but no, I got nothing for you.
That's fair. And I guess you're not hearing any chatter just from kind of behind the scenes in terms of something.
No, really not.
Yeah. I guess ultimately CBD is important, but obviously everyone's waiting on the rescheduling element. So I'm sure that's where the conversation is going to be more than anything else. In addition to key states, I know Virginia, all that stuff still is moving important.
Yeah. It is interesting when the revisions to the Farm Bill first came down, there was immediately a big push where, we got to get them to allow higher levels of gummies. We got to get a carve out for beverages. And everybody seems to want that carve out for beverages for personal use and stuff. It's wishful thinking. I hope something happens. But once again, it's crickets. So all that Farm Bill stuff goes into effect in November. And it looks like the hemp industry, if we call it an industry, is wiped out. Probably. Yeah. So companies like Glass House is doing a good job of, they are raising, different levels of plant potency. And they're going to be right there in the forefront of what is legal and what is not, and shipping what could be called hemp-based products. They also have a partnership with Cal Berkeley, I believe. Curaleaf turned on their hemp company beverages and smart enough to turn it back off. It was not a huge investment, anything like that. But yeah, and Boris on Curaleaf's call talked about it, that he thinks it's really going to be a 2027 story because billions of dollars of consumer spending went into, or is still going into, all the hemp-based products. And that's going away. And where are those dollars going to go? I think they're going into state legal dispensaries of medical and adult use. And that's a completely separate from the rescheduling that's coming. So billions of dollars of growth is going into that, all those hemp products. And besides the beverages that I want, the hell with them, I say.
Fair enough. I think finding that normal channel, not to have one competing in a way that's unfair with the other. I think, opening a clear channel for real competition is.
Can't we all just get along? I have hope in my heart for Tempters and Can and a number of others.
Okay, fair enough. So speaking of which, you mentioned Boris on the call, or his earnings call. I know we're kind of in the thick of earnings. We've gotten through some of the major players, but would love to hear high level, anything stood out to you, anything you're anticipating or looking forward to?
Not huge, but there are some whispers that they had been sandbagging a little bit over the past 3 to 6 months of quarters, but them, just like us, are waiting anxiously for our rescheduling to be complete. So they came out with earnings, and the marketplace didn't seem to really care. I'm not surprised by that, but Curaleaf, strong. Truly pretty darn strong. Green Thumb, strong. And those are a couple of the big important ones off the bat. A little bit different colors in some of those. Curaleaf, a lot of international exposure, of course, but some of the things we like about them.
That's ultimately right, being able to operate in an environment where there are clear rules, and I think Boris has talked about constantly how that's been good.
So the financials obviously look very different if you put GTI and Curaleaf side by side, but we're not talking about comparing a Dow Jones component here side by side. We're talking about cannabis companies expecting the rescheduling, and we're betting on their futures and what their futures look like. And there's plenty of other intangibles involved in all those companies.
Sure, that's true. It's been interesting, though, I think, to hear some of the comments on, expecting rescheduling to be soon, I think, from some of those companies. So that's, I think,
Oh, yeah. Even Ben, with GTI, and because he doesn't have calls, not very professional, Ben, grow up. But, some comments from him saying he expects rescheduling in 26. So thank you, Ben. Thank you for being on team rescheduling. I don't know if but anyway, but he said it. Boris said it. Everybody expects it. And just remember that 4 out of the big 5 companies worked very, very hard as a team with talking to Washington, spending money in Washington. And, that's, Boris and Kim and Charlie and George worked very hard on that. And yes, they are all pretty damn silent about it now. And yes, it is coordinated. It's expected. And if they didn't really, 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 really expect it to happen this year, they would be speaking and they would be reminding the president and they'd be reminding the contacts in Washington that, hey, you said you're going to get this done. Please get it done. Why the hell aren't you getting it done?
Yep.
But they're silent. They're silent means to me that it's getting done and they have nothing to speak up about.
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense.
I think that does, but I feel like we have seen, I think generally we saw that kind of coming into the year, but I think we've seen a little bit more being vocal, like you're saying, in terms of saying rescheduling is going to come through. And to me, I hope that echoes of what we heard about the EO. I feel like a lot of the conversation was quiet again towards the beginning of 2025, but then I think you heard much more. We think it's happening. We think it's going to get done. The EO is going to be on the way. Of course, it was at the very end of the year, which, whatever, but still was in 2025. So to me, hopefully it's an echo of that, where the talk about rescheduling being basically in the bag, quote unquote. Again, we don't know.
And if anybody does want to know what we're hearing, the biggest one that we're hearing now is that it's going to definitely be before the midterms and have an impact on the midterms. Yeah. Now, it's election day here in Texas right now, but that's the primaries. And the primaries, this doesn't have any weight at all in the primaries. I mean, who cares if it's a Republican or Democrat issue, or if it's a liberal versus a conservative issue.
Oh, no.
But once we get through the primaries and we're heading into the actual elections, it could be an issue. We've heard that it's coming before that. How much weight it has on, people's minds, I don't know. People flatter themselves thinking that cannabis is a big issue to the general public. It's not a real big issue to a large percentage of the general public, as much as we like to think it is. There's wide acceptance, though. I've heard it's called it's an 80-20, like 80% of the population is for it. Decriminalization, at least some form of legalization-ish. Only a small percentage are against it. So yeah, that's how it could be a good thing for campaigns heading into the midterms.
Yeah, that's fair.
One thing I want to point out, though, I'm sorry to cut you off, Mackenzie, is everybody needs to remember that cannabis stocks as a whole had a ridiculous run up in the month before the executive order. Yes, everybody wanted to slit their wrists with the way that algos sold it off. Some hedge funds, crushed a bunch of people. They got, bought down. It's a reminder that they're a bunch of OTC stocks again. As much as some people like to think that Noah can control the markets and runs a prop trading desk. No, Noah is the CEO of a exchange traded fund company, investment company. We don't even know who the hell the algos are. If Boris and Charlie and people like that don't know, if Sammy doesn't know, if Todd Harrison and his teams don't know, me and Noah don't know. Yeah, could it be Jane Street? Could it be Citadel? Could it be some hedge funds? I don't freaking know. but we sure as hell don't have the ability to call them up and say, stop it either. I digress. Everybody needs to remember that the stocks had a huge run up in advance of the EO, and we're not seeing that right now. So I don't know what that means.
I don't know either. I think, I
mean, nobody knows when it's coming.
I think it's that. I think there is something that we've talked about it to death, I think, to some degree, but sort of the dollar cost averaging versus the trying to time it around big moves like that. Sometimes you can do it and get lucky. Sometimes you can do it and it's a tough trade. But again, if you had dollar cost average over 2025, different experience than just trying to kind of trade around the big news like that. So
your old school quote for the day is, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. And if you have a long-term focus and you see a red day, it's probably a good day to add a little bit if you're long-term focused. You're not really timing the market, but you're adding to your time in the market.
Yes, that is a fair thing to say. Okay, and sort of the blood in the streets thing as well, I think as well.
Yeah.
Although it's a good day today, but
let's do questions.
Yeah, I'm going through them. Let's see. This one I don't know. This maybe you know more because you are in Texas, but asking is it Secretary of Agriculture?
God, I should know who it is.
An ally of the. It's a.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a yes, because almost all the big positions in the state of Texas are conservatives, and there's a little bit of infighting, if you know about Texas at all. But I would think that's, our governor is Greg Abbott. I don't even know who Secretary of Ag is right now. Sorry.
It's okay. I'll have to do some Googling, but no, that's fair. All right. Seeing some questions. Boris, speaking up, we talked about that. Question from Stevie, which is great. Wondering.
Yeah, but he's not throwing out promises or dates or anything like that. And he's not, trying to yell at New York, you got to get this done. What was
I'll throw it up. I was going to say
Stevie's question.
I think, to be fair, throwing out dates of a year seems more reasonable than a specific date, but yes, that is true.
I don't know.
The question is wondering how often Kim Rivers speaks with President Trump. I also don't know specifically.
I don't think they're talking like buddies or anything like that, but I know they've talked. So
and either way, I think administration wise, less one specific person wise, I think there is still that communication channel between the industry and administration, which makes a difference. Let me see. Seeing other questions. Yeah, maybe that's a good answer. Renato's already got it. Only on Tuesdays. Okay, let's see. I think those were all the questions I had seen.
No questions? How about some smart ass comments or something?
No, those are all the questions. I did know you wanted to at least quickly highlight for people again the NAV.
Oh yeah, because there was some brief chatter on Twitter X that I saw. So as we speak right now, MSO, that fund that specializes in those multi-state operators,
beautifully done,
say it, is up 3.5 cents, close to 1%. The leveraged, mostly around 2x version of that fund, is down 2.9 cents, negative 1.2. How does that happen? Oh my God. No, it's really easy. It's really easy. So when the market closed yesterday, somebody put in a trade at or near the close on the leveraged fund that was at a premium. It was a number of cents above the actual net asset value of the fund. That's what closing on a premium is. Just happens to be the last trade. It was on the ask or even above the ask, the last trade yesterday. So if we're looking at day over day, performance today, from last trade yesterday, it is down 3 cents. If the market were to close right now, its actual value, its actual net asset value intrinsic to the fund would actually be up, I would say. The big fund, the multi-state operator fund, is up 3 cents today. But yesterday, it closed on slight discount. Yeah, it had to be because the leverage version was on big premium. So you can go to our website And it always has the net asset value, which is the true asset value of the fund, just like a mutual fund. It's just like a mutual fund. They add up all the holdings of the fund, divide by the number of shares outstanding. That's the value of the fund. It's real simple. Yeah. Everything that it owns. And so our website always has the net asset value at the close yesterday, calculated by fund accountants, and it has the closing price. And sometimes the closing price for our funds or any funds, any fund company, sometimes they're a little bit whack because somebody put in a last trade. Was it on the bid? Was it on the ask? Was it in between? Was it outside the bid and ask band? I don't know. But that is what your change today is. Remember, it's not really the gain or loss today. It is the gain or loss since the last trade yesterday. That's your lesson for today.
That is important education. I know.
Limit orders, people.
Yeah, I know it's something you've talked about before, but I do think if we're seeing questions around it and it's a genuine question, I think it is worth repeating. Providing that education again is important. Like you're saying, it does not just apply exclusively in the world of cannabis, but I think as we've seen over the past 5 years, 10 years, there's been a lot more investing participation kind of more broadly. So I think that's great to see. And I think great to add that education in there. All right. Well, I feel like that's what I have for today. But Dan, any final thoughts?
No final thoughts whatsoever.
That sounds good. All right. Well, thanks for making the time. Really appreciate it. Everyone, thanks for being on. Thanks for the questions. And we will catch you tomorrow. Thanks so much. Bye.
Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at AdvisorShares.com.